Alright, welcome back. Sebastian here. So time for my review of the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. Certainly not the most exciting of races. It was a tense tactical battle at points for some of the drivers at the front of the field. A little bit of movement, a little bit of overtaking towards the back in the midfield as well. But fortunately, the camera director this weekend was on a bit of a vacation, so didn't get to see a whole lot of the overtaking that we actually had. So Russell started on pole position, Verstappen started P2. Williams, of course, were disqualified from qualifying for a technical issue. Sainz starting 18th, Albon starting from the pit lane alongside Gasly. Now, for the start itself, it was a pretty good start by George Russell. He was basically took the lead pretty easily into turn 1. Verstappen kind of slots in behind into P2, but Norris, good start for once from a bit of a rough qualifying P5. He gets alongside Piastri going into the first corner, and they basically go wheel to wheel through those first three corners, and basically end up making contact going into turn 3. Luckily, not really too much damage, at least performative damage on either car, but it left Piastri pretty much furious over the radio with Norris's move. A little bit clumsy, a little bit aggressive, but again, given that the contact was pretty minor, I think it was honestly not a big deal. But this left Norris in P3, Piastri P4, and it meant that, going into, if the drivers had maintained their starting positions, this would have been a net gain for Piastri in the championship, and instead it swings the other way, and it's basically a net gain for Norris. Norris basically chipping away at Piastri's lead with that switch of position at the first on the first lap. Norris, after that, lap 3, Alonso overtakes Hadjar for P8. Hadjar, unfortunately, would struggle throughout most of this Grand Prix with some kind of engine issue, not a severe issue, but it was enough that it was basically costing him several tenths of a second a lap. Lap 12, Russell Verstappen gap was 6 seconds, and this was mostly in part because Verstappen started on the soft tires. Definitely not the optimal strategy. It was basically a gamble, hoping that Verstappen would basically be able to overtake Russell off the line, which just was never on the cards with how much stronger the racing line is, or how much stronger the odd-numbered side of the grid is compared to the even-numbered side. Lap 14, Bortoleto and Snow to start the pit cycle. 11.2 seconds off for Bortoleto because he had a new front wing change. A little bit of minor contact, in the midfield going through turn 1. Nothing major, but they felt that it was enough that they had to pit, change the front wing during the pit stop. Otherwise, they were just going to lose too much performance. Norris taps the wall going through sector 3, but nothing, no big damage there. Lap 19, McLaren does a dummy pit stop, though at this point I wrote down they were waiting for the gap to Alonso to drop, or to basically open up to about 22 seconds, so that if they were to pit in front of Alonso to try to undercut Verstappen, they didn't want to get held up behind Alonso, which could just completely ruin that strategy. So as soon as that 22-second gap opens up, Verstappen takes advantage, pits right away, and he comes out right in front of Alonso. Lap 21, Hadjar pits to cover Colapinto, who had quite a bit of pace at this point in the Grand Prix after his pit stop, so it was kind of necessary there for Hadjar, especially given he didn't have a ton of pace. Lap 22, Leclerc pits. Unfortunately for Ferrari, they don't get the memo about not pitting drivers into dirty air, and he comes out 10th right behind Nico Hülkenberg. Luckily, though, for him, he is able to get past the Sauber driver into turn 5 and gets up into P9. Lap 24, Behrman makes his pit stop. He's able to overcut Hadjar, so then that basically moves him up a place up to basically what was virtual P8 at this point. No, it was virtual P9 at this point in time. Lap 26, Mercedes do a double stack. Russell basically in front of Antonelli, of course. And again, they kind of had to do it this lap as Russell comes out only 3.3 seconds in front of Verstappen. Maybe could have waited a lap or two longer, but again, you don't want to take that risk, especially if you have a slow pit stop. Lap 28, McLaren's slow second pit stop streak continues with Piastri having a 5-second pit stop. This is an issue that's been going on for several races now, where the second McLaren driver, for their pit stop, it's always slower than the first one, and no one really seems to know why. Alonso, 10-second pit stop for him. I wrote luck of the devil. Yeah, absolutely no luck recently. Luckily, things were turned around for Alonso, and he would be able to overcome that slow pit stop. But for a while there, it looked like it basically cost him a shot at points. Lap 34, Verstappen, pretty good pace at this point. He closes the gap down to the leader, Russell, at 2.8 seconds. At this point, it looked like maybe there was like an off chance he might have been able to put up a fight for the lead. But unfortunately, that would kind of go by the wayside, as on lap 38. This is on lap 38, lap 37, I should say. Verstappen locks up, and that kind of, really, really struggling with the balance to the rear of the car, asking for help over the radio from GP, asking him for like slight setup changes he can make to help with the drivability. Of course, this is the damage that basically Norris picked up on the front wing end plate from his not necessarily clumsy, but his collision with Piastri, and then again he also hit Verstappen as well. But again, no massive performance damage. There could have been a whole lot worse for both McLaren drivers with that incident. Could have been a Ferrari 2017 all over again. And then of course this is Verstappen almost going into the wall. Luckily for him, keeps it out of that. Alonso, Hadjar were having a really good battle at this point. Alonso overtakes Hadjar for P13, virtual P9, and again with Hadjar's issue that he was having. Lap 39, Stroll finally pits, last driver on the soft tire to pit, does 39 laps on those, so good job there by Stroll. Lap 43, Alonso overtakes Albon for P11, which is virtual P9, and then following lap, Tsunoda overtakes Colapinto for virtual P11 as well. Unfortunately, most of these overtakes we didn't really get to see live or even a replay of, and the only reason I know they happened is because I could see the positions change on the driver tracker on the tower on the side of the screen. Lap 45, kind of only one big, incident of the race, a bit of a mistake, and this was Nico Hülkenberg spinning at turn 5. Apparently he got caught out by Colapinto, apparently braking earlier than he expected, but again, when you're driving an Alpine, you have to brake a lot earlier than the other cars because of how bad that car is. But yeah, a bit of a mistake there by Hülkenberg. Luckily, he spun the right, basically drifted into the escape road. So basically, when he went to exit the escape road, he was facing the right way around, so didn't actually lose that much time. But I think he was forced to pit there after he completely flat spotted his previous set of tires. Lap 45, I wrote Russell doing his best Russell doing his best Sebastian Vettel impression, calling for blue flags, complaining about the midfielders basically battling each other and not getting out of his way as he came around to lap them. Alonso overtakes Behrman for P10, virtual P8 at this point. Lap 46, Norris starting to put a bit of pressure on Verstappen. And basically there was such a big gap that on lap 48, lap 48, this is from X. So you can see Hamilton had 31 seconds behind Russell, but then he had basically a 50-second gap, 50-second gap to Lawson behind, and Sainz last two drivers not to pit. So again, took advantage of this and was able to basically get a free pit stop effectively, was Hamilton. Lawson finally pits. Sainz, I think, pits a couple laps later, and as you would see in the following, after the race, Sainz, despite, being behind Lawson, very, very good pace in his in-lap, his out-lap, and basically is able to get ahead of the Kiwi in the pit stop phase and actually gets himself into a very, very good position a bit later on. Lap 53, Norris very close to Verstappen at this point. Looks like he has a look, I think, going into turn 5 on one lap, but I think that was just because Verstappen, I think, braked a lot earlier than he was anticipating. Then towards the end of the Grand Prix, we had a couple of issues going around with Ferrari. So both Ferraris dealing with brake issues during this Grand Prix, not ideal for sure. Lap 54, Antonelli overtakes Leclerc for P5. Leclerc, of course, had jumped Antonelli at the start of the Grand Prix. Then, not a great day for Tsunoda, and this is made even worse by the fact that he is then lapped by his teammate Verstappen, and this is with 8 laps to go in the Grand Prix. Lap 56, Hamilton overtakes Leclerc for P6. He basically gets let by on his fresh tires. Lap 59, Stroll overtakes Colapinto for P13. Lap 60, Sainz overtakes Hadjar for P10. So despite, in theory, being on a not super optimal strategy with the tires being out so long, makes it work, and Sainz a really, really strong pace at this point in the Grand Prix, and basically now into the points with 3 laps to go. Excellent Grand Prix from him. Then Leclerc repasses Hamilton as Hamilton's brake problem basically becomes terminal, and Russell at this point would take the checkered flag, winning his first 5th career Grand Prix. So for Hamilton, I haven't looked at it yet, but I recommend anyone to go and look at his onboard from that final lap. Apparently missed most of the corners and basically just drove around trying to not lose too much time. He would eventually be given a 5-second penalty for this, which actually drops him from P7 on the road to P8. Not entirely his fault, but again, one could make a somewhat reasonable argument that he probably should have been meatball flagged, that, you know, his car was in a dangerous position. But again, that's more of a team responsibility, team issue than it is a Hamilton issue. So, taking a look at your result of your race, joining George Russell on the podium, Max Verstappen, and Lando Norris. So I got 2 of the 3 drivers on the podium, right? I guess getting Verstappen P2 was correct, but yeah, the other 2 drivers definitely, one was on the podium but in the wrong spot, and the other one not even predicted to be on the podium. But unfortunately with Mercedes in this turbo hybrid era, this tends to be how they go. Weekends that we predict them to do well, they don't do well. Weekends where they're not predicted to do well, they'll randomly have a great race once in a blue moon, and they'll look borderline dominant. P4 Piastri, P5 Antonelli, P6 Leclerc, 7th Alonso, 8th Hamilton, 9th Behrman, and 10th Sainz. Then just missing out on points are Hadjar, Tsunoda, and Stroll, followed by Alonso, Lawson, Colapinto, Bortoleto, Ocon, Gasly, and Hulkenberg. Another Grand Prix where every driver finished the race. Now, looking at your championship standings, I'll just go over the top 3 and then we'll look at the changes in position. So, Piastri again still leads 336 points, but only 22 points ahead of Norris in second, who's on 314. Verstappen chips away just a little bit at his gap to the 2 McLarens, not enough. He needs basically like 10 points a Grand Prix in order to have any chance of winning this championship. And he took 3 points off of Norris and 6 points off of Piastri. And again, 6 is less than 10. But yeah, he now sits, I think, 60? He took, it was 60. Yeah, so he's 63 points behind Piastri, and he's now 41 points behind Norris. Now, taking a look at, changes for position, Alonso now moves up to 11th in the championship on 36 points. Sainz stays in the same spot, and Stroll and Lawson both drop positions. No one changed positions in the Constructors' Championship, but of course, McLaren won the Constructors' Championship this past weekend at the Singapore Grand Prix. They got more than 13 points, of course, with their podium, and then Piastri, of course, being P4. So that's for back-to-back Constructors' Championship for McLaren for the first time since 1991. A bit of a surprise, I thought. I remember they obviously got the double with Hakkinen, 98, 99, but of course, 99, they didn't win the Constructors. That was Ferrari, and then of course 2007 they get kicked out of the championship. In 2008 the Ferraris were a little bit better than the combination of Hamilton and Kovalainen. So yeah, first back-to-back constructors titles for McLaren in 35 years basically. So big congratulations to them. A massive turnaround obviously to where they were a decade ago. So there you go. That is my review of the 2025 Singapore Grand Prix. Not a great Grand Prix, I must say. But unfortunately, these kinds of street tracks, Singapore especially, really the big show is on Saturday with qualifying. That's, where most of the Grand Prix finishing positions are decided. And then, the Grand Prix is basically just an endurance spectacle, really pushes the limits of the drivers, and you might get some mistakes here and there, but we haven't had a safety car the last 2 years, which is a bit of a shocker, that too. So that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.